There's never been a more exciting or empowering time to be a creator. That's because a technology called Interactive 3D is changing the way we live and work.
When you're creating things on this platform, you're creating it for all the platforms.
Interactive 3D simulates the real world in a meaningful way. The result isn't a simple image or video. It's a three-dimensional world you can explore and change. In the past, it may have taken hours, if not days, for a final image to render. But with real-time 3D tools like Unreal Engine, the process is almost instantaneous.
In this project, we will explore how Unreal is being used in the advertising industry.
In the rest of this series, we'll explore step-by-step how MediaMonks achieved this finished product. And you can follow along as we work through a similar shot together. No prior experience is necessary. We'll provide you with all the files you need. So, let's go.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tuesday Educator Stream. I'm, of course, Tom Shannon, your host, and with me, as sometimes, is Mark Flanagan over here, I think, to my
Hello, of course.
this side. And today we are joined by Joseph Azam, who is a technical evangelist here at Epic Games, amongst many other things. And today we are going to be talking about our usual, we'll talk to Joseph and find out about him and his career journey, what he does at Epic now. But really, it's going to be framed around learning about what's going on in the Middle East, around Unreal Engine and around real-time interactive, how the games industries and other industries are faring, and what we're doing to help. And how we're a part of that there. So I'm really excited to welcome you to our stream, Joseph. Thanks for coming.
Anytime. Hey.
Hello, everybody. So right now, I think, are you in Paris, I believe?
Yes, you can tell from this really old-looking window.
Look at that view. We've got Joseph in Paris, and Mark is in London. It looks like some of your collection has been whittled down there. I have a feeling that we might see a new background here shortly.
I'm packing up all my boxes, so yes.
Oh, all the hats. I'm so sad.
Yeah, the hats have all gone too, yeah.
Oh, well.
Moving house in 2 weeks' time.
Moving during COVID, it's a great experience. I did it myself to move here as well, so I think a lot of us are experiencing that. So it's great to have you here to talk about this. We've been doing this stream for about a year now, and I think we've talked to a lot of folks who are from industry and from education, but I think we've had a bit of a focus on North America, a little bit of Europe. But Epic is a global company now, and Unreal Engine is used globally. When I started 3 years ago, we were such a small company, and now we have kind of reach on every continent. And to help with that, we hire people on those continents that know the area, they know Unreal Engine, and they come and we bring them aboard. And oftentimes the role that they take is what we call an evangelist. So we're going to talk today a bit about what an evangelist is. Mark Flanagan, you may currently be an evangelist. Our titles are changing. I do a lot of evangelism work, even though my title is a technical artist. So we'll talk a little bit about what evangelism is. Joseph, you also teach at university, which is awesome that you are doing both. I don't know how you do that. You have the cloning machine, don't you?
I wish.
So we'll also talk about what you're teaching these days and how you're teaching, with both COVID and the challenges of teaching in developing areas. And then we'll kind of talk about that, and then talk about what other challenges are in these developing areas, and what you as an evangelist and a teacher are doing, and what you see, and we can open up for discussion there. So without further ado, I'd like to say hi, Joseph. Welcome to the stream. Like I said, you're a lot of stuff now. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and where you came from and how you ended up at Epic.
Right. Okay. So I'm from Lebanon, and I've been living in Lebanon almost all my life until technically I left maybe a couple of months ago. So yeah, my background is all over the place. Basically, I was interested in anything related to computers, and actually, even in high school, I was self-taught how to do 3D modeling, and that was basically what I was mostly interested in. And at some point, I was like, okay, the movie industry is really hard to break into, but games seems more recent, so maybe I can go into games and then switch into movies, which was a very stupid thought. And then after actually working on games, I realized, this is actually way better than working with the traditional pipeline where you have to wait like 3 hours to see if that parameter in the material has been like the correct value or not. Well, in games, like you change it, you wait 10 seconds, like, oh, wow, this is how the shader. Now I can learn a lot quicker and iterate. So basically, I always had a passion for electronics, and that was the thing I wanted to learn. And I went to college and learned telecommunication, which is kind of electronics. But I also had a passion for anything related to computers, between graphics and programming. But I realized I can learn that field on my own, while electronics, you need labs and equipment, which is expensive. So I took the university path for that one. And at the same time, I was doing both. Now, in Lebanon, there's no game dev community. By the way, I'm giving you the long version because I feel a lot of developers on this stream are interested. How did you actually make it? Because in my region, there's not a lot of opportunities.
Absolutely. I think that's,
yes.
It's... Yeah, I'm curious to find out how you made it. What you've already described is very much how I think a lot of people worldwide they discover their love for this and find their passion for it. So please continue. So
basically, when I went to college, I learned an introduction to C, and I was like, programming is easy. Well, at least for me, it was more of something very natural. So, and I know how to do 3D graphics, so games are actually a combination of the two. So I just Googled how to make games and ended up on the few game engines. I wasn't much of a gamer, to be honest. I do play a couple of games, but that's about it. I don't play a lot of games. So I just looked for each engine, which games were made. And I went to my gamer friend and well, this is a list of the games made in this engine, and this is a list of those games. And he was like, BioShock, made in Unreal, go with that engine. Like, okay, fine. I started learning the engine. At the same time, there was a student competition where you can win actually $20,000. So I was like, oh, wow, my student debt is $20,000. So maybe I can just win that competition. And I was like, okay, I know how to do games. No one in the country knows how to do games. So that is a competitive edge. But at the same time, I have to do a nice idea. So I was like, okay, I should do something educational and cultural because that also wins a lot of prizes. So I went to the historical heritage in Lebanon, and I started see how to put that inside of a game and work on the project for a year, and then realized that year, that competition did not happen. But I realized that actually I was really interested in the project itself, and I continued working on it. And what happened, I started signing up for entrepreneurship sessions, learning how to do business strategies, how to get into the market, pitching, all of these kind of things. There's a lot of boot camps, and especially in developing regions, you're going to find a lot of people doing those type of incubators, accelerators.
Interesting.
I can honestly say, don't expect to learn anything useful in 3 months, but just having them, and then over the years, you're going to start to realize, oh, wait, this is what they meant when they said that, or it's going to show up later on. But basically what happened after is the year later, I was still a student and the competition did actually happen. So I had actually 2 years to do a project, and basically I won. It felt like there was a big advantage compared to other participants because I used all of those combinations together. And I decided, instead of paying my student debt, which I still have, by the way, to use the money to keep working on the game. And I did that. I continued working on the game and started going to events and like showcases, applied to a different grant. That was a local grant for $10,000 or so, and managed to showcase my game. And showcasing the game is a really essential part because you get a lot of feedback and a lot of, basically, just seeing someone playing your game, you understand what's your next steps going to be. And just by building the network, going on Twitter, getting into issues with my game, asking someone online, interacting, maintaining those relations. Eventually, I ended up at GDC because I had a talk on how I managed to scan a castle for basically nothing, maybe like $70. And I didn't have money back then. I needed some type of equipment. That was before actually I won the money for the competition. I scanned the castle. That was a very interesting, inspiring talk. Managed to get into GDC, and when I went to GDC, I was like, this is really good. I need to go there the year after as well. And by the way, I did apply for Epic as a gameplay programmer. I did not get accepted. I don't think I was that qualified because my level definitely doesn't have AAA programming behind it. But eventually at GDC, I was talking to people, and I met with Short de Jong, which is the main evangelist for Europe. And he said, well, you're actually like, we're looking for people to do, we want to like do evangelism in the Middle East, and you seem like a candidate that you got recommended by a couple of people actually, because some of my friends were actually also knows Short, and so, and since I'm networking and having a presence online, it meant that if you want to know, like, how many people in the Middle East are already doing that? Very few people using Unreal in the Middle East and being present online, being known.
Mm-hmm.
So immediately when someone says, hey, I need someone in the Middle East using Unreal, there's a high chance I'm gonna like come up, or probably a few other people. Now, another thing that happened was I was also doing community events. I realized that not only I need to make my game, but also the community needs to grow around me while I'm making the game, to have people to work on the game with me. So that I was organizing events, hosting workshops. We actually brought even experts from outside the country to Lebanon to give workshops. We tried to keep the events as free as possible. The only stuff that were paid that required to cover the expense of the person to come to the country. But anyway, that combination of, oh, and I also started teaching eventually. So having a technical background while teaching, while organizing community events, while doing that and being present outside was a perfect combination to apply for an evangelist position, basically. So, yeah.
Yeah, and this is a story that we've heard because we've had several people on over the last year, and this is, we ask, how did you end up at Epic? Because a lot of our audience, they want to come work at Epic, or they want to come work at a company like Epic. They're either at the beginning of their career, or they're in another career and they want to transition over. And so kind of understanding what this path is really helpful. But the one of the most common, one of the strongest commonalities between all of them seems to be this community aspect. It's part of how I came to Epic. It's how you came to Epic. Many people have come to Epic by becoming a part of a community, or in your case, you have created a community, and a little self-servingly, to help work on your own game, you brought gaming to Lebanon. But that's very much, we hear this very often, that
Again,
getting out and putting your stuff out in front of people and building communities around it, it makes you a quantity. And when you do apply for a job at Epic, or a big company, people that you might not have even actually met will know your name. And know who you are, or you might have met them at GDC. All of these opportunities are really important, and we tell students, like, get to GDC, be a volunteer, go buy your own ticket, just go there so that you can meet some people.
Though, so keep in mind, GDC is very expensive.
Very expensive.
Super expensive. I mean, there are ways to reduce the price, but someone in the Middle East will spend around $1,000 a minimum just for the flight ticket.
Yeah.
So you don't need GDC. You can network online, LinkedIn, Zoom, whatever. There's a lot of ways to network. GDC is nice, but it's not the only option.
And I think, especially after the year that we've had, those options have become much stronger and more available. And I think more accepted by industry, which was very, very much a very face-to-face, and we're still a very face-to-face industry. But I think that opportunity has grown over the last year for you to participate in those events. And like even you can now participate in GDC and SIGGRAPH virtually for a lot less expense. Because you're right. I mean, even getting a hotel room in San Francisco during GDC, I think
you have to book it like
we've all shared some very small spaces in San Francisco to get to GDC.
Yeah, but honestly, even hostels at GDC are nice because the people you're sharing room with is gonna be developers. So you'll be networking even when you sleep.
Other conferences have
sleep.
similar. Other conferences have similar kind of issues with this. Annecy is one of my favorites, Animation Festival. And literally, when 1 year is finished, you need to book accommodation for the next year. And that's what everybody does.
Wow. Yeah.
Joseph, are there any conferences or meetups or anything in your region that you feel people should be either kind of taking a new look at, or should reiterate on?
So I can tell you the history of conferences, and I'm not gonna tell you don't go to this or go to that one. I think just take a look at every conference and you decide if it's good for you or not. So you have in Egypt, they have Insomnia. They did the first edition right before the pandemic. I don't know if they're going to do anything until everything calms down. You have in Turkey, there's GIS, which is Gaming Istanbul. They recently did IndieWay, which is online. You had DGC, which was in Dubai. I think they also did an online event. I don't know when it's going to be a follow-up. And there's Arabic Games, which is a conference I was involved in. It was online. It's purely online. That was the first edition we did last year. We probably plan to do a second edition next year. Actually, this year, basically. It's technical talks and business talks from indies, but it's purely in Arabic because we know a lot of developers might have an issue with English. So the main thing about that presentation is like, hey, talk about everything as long as it's like the new content. Like it's not like introduction or something. It's more like useful for developers who've been already in the industry for a while. And same time, it has to be in Arabic. That's the two requirements.
Oh, so it's required that it's in Arabic for that conference.
Yeah, but
that's
that
awesome.
conference is completely free, and the main goal of it is to unite all communities. So we reach out also to local communities. We told them, hey, we want to highlight you on the website. All we ask of you is just, can you like share the event with your community? And we'll also play a trailer for your community during the event. It's all about like everyone who's doing anything in the region, we want to highlight you. We even did a small game showcase. So if people wanted to like show some of their projects, we even did like a Nintendo style kind of thing where we had a host. He was making some simple transition jokes in between them. And we were playing them. And the games were really like nice. They're not the games you're going to see in AAA studios. They look like indie games from the region. And they're all like they had a spot.
That's fantastic. That's really cool. So so this is, you're discussing kind of a little bit about kind of your evolution into becoming an evangelist here at Epic. And so now, so as an evangelist, what do you do at Epic? How has that moved your community building? How has that evolved then?
Right. So it's a very broad definition, and even as an evangelist personally, it's very different from other evangelists. We're united by one goal, which is we want to spread the engine and make it easier and more accessible. But in order to achieve that, that is very different. Like I know, for example, other evangelists work with already established studios. Well, in my region, there's very few. So my strategy kind of shifted a bit to something else. And there's a lot of things to focus on there. One, we need to understand that the region doesn't have that many developers. So my focus is not only help developers use Unreal, but have the game dev ecosystem as a whole to grow. Because the more developers, the more ecosystem grows, the more likely you're going to get developers who are using Unreal and other engines, and you will have that wheel. But if you have a single Unreal Studio there, even if it's a great, it's not going to survive long if there's not a proper ecosystem around it. Second thing, which is having a presence there, because I know a lot of developers watch these streams and they don't see like, hey, we don't see anything we can relate to. It's always happening in the US, in Europe. We'll never get to see these. So right before the pandemic, I did organize a couple of events, smaller events. There was in Turkey, in Lebanon. I collaborated with someone in Jordan. He organized the event. I was just present there. So same thing with Bahrain. So we tried to do something constant. And even when I went to Egypt, I attended a few events. So I also toured the whole region. I tried to visit as many countries as possible. There are some exceptions. So right now, I'm not in charge of Israel, just because there's a lot of trouble in other countries if you go to Israel. So I'd rather not be involved. So another evangelist is handling Israel. The second one is unfortunately Iran, which there's sanctions, so there's not much I can do. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, we really want everyone to use the engine. It's out of my hands. I really can't do anything there. So I know some people in the chat are from Iran. I was reading the comments, so really sorry.
Well, thank you for joining us and being part of our community, even if we can't get there just yet. And so this is, you know, it's very much, a lot of it is very similar to evangelism, but you're right, or I should say to our other evangelists. So our other evangelists, like you said, very much, they work with existing studios, helping them adopt Unreal or transition over from other game engines, their own or other off-the-shelf engines. I, as an evangelist, work with schools that are doing the same thing. But what you're saying is really in your area, there aren't any, or there are so few that really, just like when you were building your own game studio, your focus is on building the industry itself, which is, I think, might be a little harder than what the rest of us have to do. We don't have to build a whole industry. We just have to help people move over to a piece of software. So how are you tackling that over there?
Well, the thing is about my game, I never managed to finish it because, like you said, that's a lot of things to focus on. The way I see it right now is my game is still my hobby project, but I can see it more of a vessel that kind of got me here to this point. It was the thing that was like forcing me to keep up with all the latest technology, to do the network, to do all of this. But at this point, it's not the main priority for me anymore. But yes, you have to know that if you want to do proper job with the community, it takes a lot of time, even for simple events. And let's say you get used to them, you can easily organize the event. Over time, you're going to be tempted to do more. You're not going to say, oh, I can do this, I'm going to stop here. It's more like, because I can do this so easily, I'm going to take the next step and do something hard. I actually once organized a game jam, a workshop, and a party 3 days in a row. Like I had them in the same week being organized, just because like, I wonder if I can just put everything in one box and see if I can manage.
How'd that turn out?
Well, I survived. It wasn't the best idea, but we survived. I can tell you a few things. One, the game jam went well because it's a game jam. We've done so many before, so we're used to them. The workshop went also well. We've been preparing it for forever, so that actually did well. The party, it was more like a fundraiser for the community, and we made around $400 minus, almost. Yeah, so that was nice. But I was talking to a lot of people about this, and everyone was like, you just lost $400? I lost $5,000 my first event. And the other person was like, I lost $10,000. Okay, fine, I get it. It's nothing. It is still a lot for $100, but for a first-time edition event, and we learned a billion things. Like one thing, drinkers, like people who go to the club, and gamers, doesn't really blend in one event. Yeah, go figure. Like we had the gamers just playing games and not doing anything at the party, and we had people coming at the party be like, meh, and leaving.
So what you're saying is really like you're putting on events, you're helping contests, and so how else are you building community, and also how else can
Oh, wow.
people in our crowd, in our audience and out there, how can they help you? Because I think they're just as interested in having a strong games and interactive industry that's local, because that's key. Like, you know, anyone can go learn Unreal and go move to LA and get a job, but there's a lot of
Well,
people who
that's
don't want to
still
move
very
to
hard
LA
to
to get
do,
a
though.
job, or they have to, they have to get a visa to go to LA.
Right.
And
So-
even in the States, there are people who they want to work locally, and I think this is important, is that you've shown that you out there, champions, you can actually affect this world. And there's an opportunity now, because it's moving so quickly, I feel that even in the United States, if there's no game companies around you, you can help build up that community. But it is a very as we say in the States, chicken and egg sort of situation, where you can't
It's gonna
have a
be long
game
and hard.
company until there's game developers, but people won't decide to be game developers if there aren't jobs in game development. And so it's up to us to send Joseph there to solve
Okay.
it.
From what you said, I have a lot of disclaimers. First, doing community events is not easy at all. The amount of time I said this is going to be my last events are infinite. I don't know what I'm still doing it. It is really hard. You're going to feel bad if you had 20 people the first event and then you had 5 people the next event. You're going to feel those lows. You will feel great whenever you have a successful event, or whenever you have people helping you. If you feel yourself you're on your own doing an event, that's also going to feel low. It's a trap, basically. It's rewarding. We don't know why we're doing it, but it's not that easy thing. And also, I described how I got to the industry. Doesn't mean that's the path for everyone to get into the industry, because I was lucky. I found a position that matches all of these. Doesn't mean we want to hire now 100 evangelists for the region, so everyone decides to. I think they need to find what they're passionate about and keep working on it. That's for sure. The main advice that holds up is networking. Talking to as many people about
Absolutely.
your plan and discussing it, and they will tell you what to do, the advice and all of that. That is like definitely, and keep working on themselves. If there's no opportunity for you, then just create one until you find one. So if you don't find a studio to hire you to make the game you want to make, go start making the game and learn. Though the problem is, if you've been working on your own game for 2 years, you're gonna find a challenge to team up with other people. Be like, oh wait, now I have to give him 50% of the company, though he just joined and I don't know he's great. That mentality. So it's easier to start from the beginning, but also I eventually found a founder after a few years, and that was simple because the guy didn't ask to be a founder. It just naturally happened that he was like, oh, I want to help you with the project. And he started helping. I was like, wait, I can rely on this guy. And that's how it happened. But that took a lot of time, and I wouldn't recommend waiting 2 years to find someone as well. So yeah, those you have to be it's a bit tricky and all this. And some of the stuff I kind of stopped doing some things and started doing other things. Definitely working for Epic and having a certain budget. Well, before I was doing the events for free helped a lot. Like before I was like, I had to call so many people to get the space, get the food. Now I'll be like, hey, can I sponsor this event to just like get pizzas during the event? And it's a lot easier to do when I'm, especially because if it's like a personal expense, like if I'm physically present there, I don't have to go through the formalities of setting up a contract. I can just simply pay it as an expense. So any event that I attend, it's a lot easier to support. But yeah.
It's
So-
I'm sure that's like you talked about. You only lost $400, and you must have been you were the winner of the.
Hey,
I lost so
that-
much money at this, so it just shows that it's.
Back then, that was half my salary, for the record.
And that shows that it can be really challenging without that backing.
Oh yeah.
And so it really is, it's a very challenging situation to bring an industry into an area and build that community around it.
Also, I know I'm saying me, but when I say community, I'm not the only person working there. We're around, well, multiple people over the years. And right now we're 4 people at least, and
Oh, wow.
1 new person, so definitely 5. Yeah, we're still managing the community in Lebanon as well.
That's fantastic. It's really interesting to hear such a different kind of ground up, kind of grassroots sort of effort that you're having to do on a daily basis compared to.
And we're trying to do the same if possible with the other countries. Now, luckily, I managed to do the full tour of the region before the pandemic happened. Like I was wrapping up my tour when the pandemic started, so definitely I did gather a lot of information.
Good timing.
I just realized that the stuff I'm doing doesn't scale well for one person, and now I'm looking at a better way to approach the region, how we can do it on a bigger scale. And that will show up over the next, hopefully, we'll try to do stuff online during the pandemic, but after the pandemic, hopefully the region will see more activity there. And yeah.
And so currently, of course, we're doing everything virtually. But before the pandemic, like you said, you traveled, you visited the countries, you visited the developers and the communities that are there. And that's a big part of the role of an evangelist, and something that we find very important at Epic is that FaceTime with people. And I have spent a lot of hours on airplanes traveling around and attending events like this and getting face to face. And we find that to be very, very important and very engaging. How have you managed over this last year? Do you feel that you've had success with virtual events, or are you just totally itching to get back in person? Or are we looking at kind of just a different new way of doing things that's somewhat hybrid, or what do you feel like?
I think it's a different way and it's hybrid. So I feel there's a lot of value in just being present there.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was surprised, but actually like when I went to Turkey twice in a row, the reactions I got were very different. Like the first time they're like, oh, okay, cool, you're visiting once. When you come more often, they're like, oh, okay, you're serious, you're doing more things now. An example. And even if I meet you online all the time, wouldn't you appreciate if sometime we can actually meet in person?
Mm-hmm.
Now, online is really important because honestly, there's no way you can cover everyone and everything and everywhere. So you want to make sure everything is covered online, and then you do the specific things per country. So whatever, like, there's a lot of initiatives that you can easily, like, localize content, for example. You can have all your tutorials already localized. And then you notice, okay, well, in Egypt, we also need those 2 specific things. So you go to Egypt, you do those, and the combination of the 2 is, for example, possible.
Interesting. So in addition to being an evangelist at Epic and trying to build a whole industry, you are also a teacher. You're a lecturer as well. So you're a lecturer at university.
Yes, at St. Joseph University of Beirut.
That's very, very cool. What do you teach?
Well, I teach game development, and I think that everyone in the region will be familiar with this, where I say there's no proper game development program. There's no dedicated from start to finish game development program that can guarantee this student when he graduates, he has a strong enough background to get hired immediately. So right now, it's mostly computer science programs putting a couple of courses of game development inside of that. And this is what we're pushing for. So we're pushing of how much we can get people who are interested in games, get a small exposure on how to get started and like push them in the correct direction. And that is mainly the course. So I've been teaching this course. This is like the 4th time I teach it. So it's been over 4 years. And each year I changed the course a lot. And especially this year, because with the pandemic, it became online. And I realized, you know what, it's online. There's a billion things I can do this course to be better, because I honestly think online tutorials are way better than whatever I learned at university before. They're more efficient. They have a lot of content. You can always rewind. I have short attention span. That's normal. but at least I can like, okay, I feel like I'm gonna sleep now because I've been watching 2 hours of tutorial. It made me sleepy. I'm just gonna pause and take a break, watch it after. So I took that format and I tried to adjust it to my course, which is, okay, fine, I'm gonna pre-record my sessions and tell the students, you have to watch them. Now, I know students will not do anything unless they have grades, and I know exams are stressful, so I removed exams, but I added weekly assignments that are graded. So instead of student waiting for the end of semester to study everything and try to survive the course, it's more like, well, if you don't want to do the homework, well, basically you're not going to be able to survive for the next week. So now they have to work from week to week. And they're actually fair homework. So the expectation of you have 1 hour to watch of tutorials, and then you have a homework that should probably take 3 hours to make, maybe. I assume if I made it in front of you in a video for 1 hour, it's going to take you at least 3 hours. But I mean, it should be fair.
That's a very fair schedule that you've set out, or very fair expectations for your students.
Right.
It can be easy to just be like, I'm going to take all of your week because there's a lot to teach here, obviously. So please go on. Tell us more about the content, etc.
Yeah, and also to manage with my job and all of this, and I'm a bit very lazy. So I'm like, okay, if I recorded this year, next year I have my course done. Basically, all I have to do is just show up and do stuff. And of course, you can take notes and iterate, but it will be like small iteration, not like redoing the whole thing. I try to do, okay, so now I still have a session that is live where students can ask me questions. And I went on and I'm like, does anyone have any questions? And maybe a couple of students had 2 questions, and then I still have 1 hour and a half to fill, so I wasn't sure what I was gonna do. So I tried explaining the course that I'm going to explain, and that was useless because I'm gonna explain it again. So the next session I tried, okay, I can give them industry news, and that ended in the first 20 minutes. There's no more news in the industry from week to week. So you know what, I give up. I started correcting homeworks because I'm also lazy. So I'm like, instead of spending extra time to correct the homework, let's do them live. And I found suddenly students were, oh, I'm very interested now. So this is what I'm doing right now. I record the homework in front of them live. If they have any questions, they can ask them. If for some reason something doesn't work and it's supposed to do, they'll be like, hey, I don't know what's happening. This was supposed to do this on my computer. And I'm like, oh yeah, I have this wrong setting here. Or they can say, well, I actually did this because I thought you meant that. So that student can justify. And for me, I'm not really like about, okay, I'm looking how to get enough grades to get like the average of the class to some point. It's more like, if you do what I ask, you can actually get 20 over 20. If you do more, because actually as students, I asked for like the first homework was asking the student, hey, can you place some objects? And a student built a castle. So I'm like, whoa, okay, cool. You're getting way more, but I was already giving him a 10. So I just give him a 12 over 10. So I decided that every student that does something I didn't ask for will get extra points. And now I'm encouraging students to like go beyond what I'm asking and do extra stuff as well. I'm not saying this is the best way to approach this course. I'm still testing it, but so far from this edition, it seems to be going well.
And this is so fascinating because we've been teaching the same way for a long time. Classroom, lab, homework, classroom, lab, homework, or lecture, lab, homework, lecture, lab, homework. And this year has really just kind of thrown it all into the cyclone, and we're kind of pulling out and trying, and this idea of flipped learning over this last year has just grown immensely. Both we use it ourselves in our own instruction now. We're hearing from educators around the world that they're leaning on our content and YouTube content, making their own content, and this idea that a lecture is it's basically a YouTube video. Why do we all have to do this all at the same time, and all the complexities of doing it live when there's no apparent advantage? And then
there used to be.
And there used to be. Well, yeah. You'd all be together and you could raise your hand, and now
it goes back to 11th century.
And then you had the lab where you know, in the 11th century or even the 20th century, you had to go somewhere to get hands on with this stuff.
Yep.
If you wanted to do titrations under a fume hood, you probably didn't have the equipment at home. If you wanted to go do 3D animation or even game development 5-10 years ago, you'd have to go to a lab and they'd be like, only you can use the SGI workstation for an hour because it costs $1 million. You know, so there wasn't a way to do it at home. But now, you know, with the democratization of all of this creative software from Unreal Engine, Blender, and the computing power being so much greater, even on a low-end computer now, you don't really need that lab time. I mean, certainly there's still, you know, still chemistry and biology and robotics, and they'll need those lab times.
And Unreal is free.
And Unreal is free. So
I say it most weeks, makes a big difference.
Is it free this week still?
It's still free.
Sweet.
But I remember when I started out doing sort of architectural visualization type stuff, I had AutoCAD and a couple of other tools, and I had a dongle, which is a little piece of software or hardware to plug in the back of the machine, which made AutoCAD work. If I lost that, that was basically my work had gone. You know?
Yeah.
And AutoCAD back then cost me about the equivalent of a month's salary.
Don't
More
lose
than a month's salary.
that
Don't lose it.
dongle.
Don't lose it.
Wow.
Don't lose
Well,
that
it
dongle.
cost me around, when I was a kid, a month's allowance.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so even, you know, and that's the thing is even a small cost can really create an enormous barrier for people. It's one of the reasons we took Unreal from $20 a month to free, because there were just enough people that were like, $20 is too much. I'm a student. I live at home. I'm 13 years
I was
old.
one of
Where am
those-
I getting
hey,
$20?
I was one of those students, actually. I had to eventually get the GitHub student pack to be able to access Unreal 4 when it came out.
Yeah. And so, you know, sometimes you think, oh, that's not that much. But even $20 can be too much for someone to be able to, you know, to prioritize between dinner
So
or
I mean,
Unreal Engine.
That's
I'm
exactly,
I'm probably
Dinner
gonna
or Unreal
choose
Engine.
dinner. So, and that gets, you know, amplified in developing areas.
I also want to add a point of a strong reason why you want to have in our region videos for courses is the internet is so bad that if I'm doing this live, they will get like one frame every 10 seconds with really choppy audio. So YouTube, strangely enough, works really well because they have local servers. I upload those videos to YouTube. They can watch them at their own ease. That is a huge advantage. I think the main challenge is internet and computers. Well, they have fast enough computers, but they're still low end. Like you can still get computers that are below 8 gigs of RAM. Luckily, they have an i7 processor at least in them and an old GPU, but that's enough to run Unreal, so that's good. On very rare occasions, I get students that have a computer that is weaker than a mobile phone, but yeah, I mean that
happens.
I can't really help at that point.
Could you give us an example of what kind of internet speeds you're talking about when it is working?
When it's working, like the ideal scenario, that would be like 400 bytes per second. So the internet would be around 2 megabits or 4 megabits. That's like an average speed.
So we're close to dial-up.
No, dial-up is more reliable. So I'm not kidding. I had sometimes Google wouldn't load, like some really terrible times where like, I don't know, there's stress on the network. And eventually to solve it, I had to like buy a 4G subscription because 4G is expensive, so it's more likely to work.
Oh. So the wireless, the 4G is more reliable than your wired internet.
There's somebody else giving another question here, which I've seen as well with some of our contacts in the Middle East and North Africa. Even electricity supply can be a problem.
Yeah, I mean, in Lebanon, we have half the day's electricity and the other day's backup generator. Yeah, you just have to buy a UPS, which is like a battery that's like save your computer for 10 minutes while the switch happens. And if you have enough money, eventually you can buy like an APS, which is a bigger battery that's like lasts your room for 6 hours. But yeah, that is definitely an issue as well.
So you're adapting your virtual teaching, because I think a lot of virtual teaching just went to a Zoom meeting, and we're just going to teach through Zoom. But
well, Zoom is strangely enough really good on terrible internets.
well, that's really good to know. But between your own laziness, as you've admitted, Joseph, and the problems, I think you're kind of inventing a very interesting kind of course structure where there's this offline lecture where students can consume that lecture in their free time or when they can get to an internet cafe or whatever their circumstance is. It's interesting that it wouldn't just be like, I don't want to sit through a lecture. It's like I literally have 1 hour a day where I can use the internet. Trying to time that to a class schedule would be difficult. And then,
and also, sorry, another thing, the example projects I give to my students are always compressed and stripped down to reduce the file size for them to download and upload. That is also something.
That is something that I try to focus on with my own stuff as well, because even when I visit schools and you have, 30, 60 computers that need to get a project on them, it's a lot easier to distribute a 200 megabyte project around than a 3 gigabyte project. And as we discussed last week, one of the biggest tips for this is don't include starter content. It's like 850 megabytes of stuff you can.
No, I'm trying to keep my project below 100 megabytes.
Good for you. Good for you.
Like 100 megabytes, it's still, I think there's no problem. 200, it's hard, but it's fine. In that range. Above it, it's going to be like, it's probably.
I've got a question for you both, and this is something which I don't know if everybody does, but I know a few people do. When you actually watch video tutorials, do you watch them at the speed which they're recorded, or do you change that?
Depends.
Yes.
So, I know when I used to watch tutorials, when I had eventually a lot of them that I need to watch, I didn't even watch the tutorial. I would just even skip to see like, okay, he's using this feature that does that. All I need to know is that feature exists and it requires a few clicks to do this result. And because that feature eventually I will not use until I reach it in a project further down the line after a few months. And I'm gonna watch it anyway then. So basically for the introduction, no, I watch them at regular speed. I even watch multiple introductions so they're engraved in my hand. So from different people, so I don't miss anything. Then after I watch at faster speed, and then everything complementary that I don't need right now, but it's interesting, I'll just like skim through it.
Yep. I find there are times which strangely, don't know why, but strangely, sometimes watching things at a faster speed can actually be more useful in terms of retention at times.
I think it's like almost like seeing a time lapse where you can,
you
don't know how a flower
picture
opens and follows the sun, but if you watch it in time lapse, you're like, oh, that flower totally opens and follows the sun. So sometimes I think watching someone do something and seeing the connections between things a little quicker, with a little less space can be helpful. And I've actually found myself just earlier today, I noticed I was watching a tutorial on landscape layer weights because I needed to know like some slight differences. And I did the same thing where I was just like, where is he using it? Oh, wait, there he is. And I went back a little bit, listened. Okay, that's the part I needed to know. I don't need to master landscapes right now. I just need to know about this one node real quick.
But I think Mark is saying, I'm doing your approach, but what Mark approach is more that when you listen very quick, like you're not skipping, it's playing at a faster speed.
1.25 is what you should do.
Yeah, it helps with your attention span, basically, because some people just talk really slow, like.
Now, there's one person that I never speed up, and that's George, because everything he says is so content rich.
Wait. Ryan Brooks, you have to slow it down.
Yes.
Yes. Yep.
I wear out the back arrow on my keyboard. Back 15 seconds. No, say that again.
There
say
can be
that
times
3
as well.
more times.
Use the transcript feature sometimes as well. It can be very useful because sometimes
a human
it's
person
to
actually did
pick out.
that.
Yeah.
We have
Yeah.
actually we have there's the localization team, and there's someone also, they're doing the caption as well. So for multiple languages, every YouTube video almost on our channel has subtitles and caption. They're not auto-generated. There's actually a whole team working on this. Hi, Kate.
Hi. Yeah, that's a really good point. Is that
Find out what works for you, because no two learners are the same.
Oh, and you can also apparently search in the caption. So if you're wondering like, oh, where did they mention that feature? You can open the caption, Control F, and look for it, and it'll tell you at minute 1 he said that sentence.
that's really helpful, actually. I often have very long videos and I'm looking for that one spot. So then the other thing that I think is really interesting that's happened with your class, to get back to school, if we will, is that your class time, like you said, you struggled to kind of figure out what to do with class time. It's really hard to do. I've struggled with it, like hands-on online, where it's like I can show you what to do, but I can't see what you're doing, or I can't even see your face to see if you're panicking, or
And you know the frame rate they're seeing your video at as well.
Exactly. And you've probably done it, and most of the time it's people just asking you to go back to the last thing you saw so they can try and copy it, and it's okay, but it's not great. So it's interesting that you saw that and were like, this time is not well spent for that. And what you've ended up on, I think, is something really cool, and something that I remember really fondly from art school, which is peer review. And it's something that happens in the game industry all the time. You are, as a part of a team, are constantly tasked to help critique everyone around you and make their work better, just on a daily basis. And then very often you are brought in to give critique. Sit down, watch this thing, or play this thing, give critique. QA is all about critique. And so learning the skills of critique is going to be one of the best things that they can learn, aside from technical skills for the game industry, or those soft skills. And it's why we often look at college graduates as good candidates, because we know that they've gone through a rigorous program and they hopefully have some communication skills and some of these soft skills that help them get through. So it's not just that they have a degree. So I think it's really interesting to bring that into the virtual classroom and kind of create something that's very analog to what they'll need to do. And it's a skill that they'll need to learn. They'll need to learn how to also be critiqued. When you tell them that the thing they've done is wrong or not up to expectations, to be able to take that critique is something that takes people years to learn. It can be very hard, especially when you love your work and someone tells you that it's not right. That how you react can really determine where that project is going to go from that point.
I'm going to post an article from the rookies, who we work with quite frequently, which I found really useful for this whole topic, which is, what's it called? It's called How to Seek and Give Feedback. An artist's
nice.
guide.
I would love to
Quality
that.
feedback. And it is very true. Feedback will make you better as an artist. It always makes you better.
Feedback.
Even if the feedback is not what you want to hear.
And if you trust you
Yes.
trust the people that are giving you the feedback, and you know that they are giving you that feedback only to improve what you've done, it's very different. And it's you have to learn that trust and learn that these people are not trying to bring you down. They're actually trying to lift you up.
But separate your work from you as a person, because quite often people think that they're enmeshed. So they're definitely very different things. And if somebody's criticizing your work, it's generally saying you could do this better, or this would make better work. They're not saying you're a bad person. They're actually saying this is how you make better work, and how you can then sort of reattach it and become, that is part of who you are. But it's not personal criticism. There's no place for personal criticism in a classroom, really.
So I have a note on on the feedback itself, I think this is an issue that I faced a lot in Lebanon when I first starting out, is that the people who were actually making games and providing feedback, they would come to me and be like, "Oh, your game is not fun. You need to do it fun, if you know what I mean." Like, I don't know what you mean.
No.
Or someone else would come and say, "Why aren't you like doing it in a different engine, or why aren't you doing it in 2D?" Like, because I want to do it in 3D. Like, that's the type of feedback I was getting. And then I went to Canada for a showcase, and I was showing someone my prototype, and he was like, "You know what? I like this what you did here, but the thing is with this is I've seen it in every game. However, see that half-finished feature there? That is very original. I've never seen it, and I'm actually quite impressed by that. Maybe you should work more on that." And
Yep,
for me,
that's
that was
useful.
like a glass shattering moment. Like, whoa, that's how you give feedback. And it's so, I came back and started giving people feedback, and everyone was like, "Please give me feedback now." And I know it's very obvious, but you never think of it when that's the whole advice, the type of advice you usually get until you see someone do it properly, and then you realize how to do it. So
I remember a story from visual effects. Somebody was doing an advert for, I believe it was surgical gloves, and the feedback from their client. Now, client feedback is something which is again different, and all artists need to learn about client feedback. And the client's feedback was, "I really like what you've done, but can you make it 10% more mysterious?" We've all had that kind of feedback. There's times when, as artists, it actually we have to be able to elicit feedback and find out what people mean as well. So that's a skill to learn.
Yep. Another note I want to add is for my course, I use the instructor guides, and those were that actually I used them multiple occasions, but I think this time I'm actually using them properly, I would say. You know, I usually don't have that much time to prepare the course, so I'm like, I'm just gonna go over them. The title looks like this. I never actually went in depth, but when I decided to teach my students, I was like, okay, each week, I'm gonna split the course. You're gonna learn the engine, but at the same time, you're gonna learn a discipline in the industry. So I started with the most basic one, which is level design, because you don't need to code or anything, just place objects and design them. So I did a presentation on level design, and it was actually lucky because I was staying at a friend who's a level designer at Ubisoft. So I told the guy, "Hey, I'm going to teach them on level design. I'm not a level designer. Here's the presentation. Can you actually tell me more stuff? Should I add?" And he was looking at it like, that thing is missing. And then I went to the next slide. I was like, "Oh, there it is." And then we realized everything was in the presentation. The only thing that was missing was more examples from real games. So I went online and started looking for similar examples and some videos and gameplay features. And now I'm using those. It's called Introduction to Game Development. That's the instructor guide I'm using. And it's actually perfect for every discipline. I realized that, okay, today I'm teaching them Blueprint. Let's see which one is on Blueprint. And I take that and I do a 20-minute presentation with my own examples on top. And that's Introduction to Blueprint. And then I do the course that I'm doing the Introduction to Blueprint. Same thing for level design. This is what a level designer is. And these are some level design concepts. And then, okay, now we're going to open Unreal and start designing that mini level. And this is going to be your homework.
That's really great. That's really why we put those out there, was to help fill in those gaps. And when you're like, "Oh, I need a slide on what a game designer is," you yourself could spend an hour and a half finding images and thinking up the right words, or you can open up Chris Murphy's guide and take that
really
slide.
Well done.
And he spent an enormous amount of time working on it, and it really
shows.
Each of the guides the authors really spent a lot of time working on, because all of the authors are educators themselves, and when we approached them and told them what this would be used for, they were like, "Oh, what can I do? What else can I add to these?" And it's good to hear that you're using them yourself. And if people aren't aware, I've posted the link in the chat, so we have 5 of them right now. We've got a Blueprints guide, a VR guide, game development guide, which is great because it's not just Unreal, it's about game development as a whole, and the industry. What is QA? What's a game developer? What's a pipeline? These sorts of things.
And also keep in mind, you don't have to use all the slides and all the examples. Just pick the one that you need, basically.
Yeah, and so each one has like, it's basically a whole semester's worth of lecture slides, project files, everything that you need, assessments, quizzes. But really the idea is, like you said, Joseph, is to take the parts out of there that you need or want and use them. And so we have them up. I posted the link. They're an open source MIT attribution non-commercial.
That is correct. Yes.
So in other words, you can use them however you want. You just can't resell them, and you need to say that they came from us, which is pretty easy to do because we put a lot of logos on it.
It would take you a while to take them all off.
It'd be pretty hard to
You can
change
edit
that.
them. You can put your own stuff in there, and you can redistribute them, and other people can pick them up. And yeah, we encourage you to do that. But just it should be with most open source work, it should be, again, continuing that ethos of being free and also giving credit to people who've done the work.
Yep. And so we have two others. We've got Teach Yourself Unreal Engine 4 by Ari Cookson. And then we have the Navigating Large Code Bases
Yes.
by Mark Alano. And this is for anyone who's teaching programming or graphics. This is an excellent resource. The structure that he's laid out and the way he introduces the idea is that Unreal is kind of big, and students go to school and they learn to be programmers, but they don't often get to interface with a real live big commercial application. Unreal is pretty unique. You know, they don't get to go play with the Photoshop code, but Unreal, they can play with the code and they can implement things and change things. And so it introduces students how to work with a massive code base like Unreal. So while it focuses on kind of graphics programming, the structure of it and the content kind of apply to any really large application and how you can bring students through that. And in the end, you know, if you took that course, you'd be programming shaders directly in Unreal Engine, which is pretty impressive stuff. So yeah, I wanted to take an aside to mention that. You brought it up, Joseph, so I had to talk about that real quick.
Yeah, there's also another point. Unless Mark, you want to add something first?
No, we were just going to say if you have anything from your students.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to also talk more about how I structured the course, which is project-based, because I want by the end of the course that students have some type of portfolio. So I want them to, one, not like wait the whole course to actually see a working game. They need to have small projects all over the semester. So by the end of the semester, students should have around 3 projects that are already uploaded to GitHub as a portfolio piece. Are they the best portfolio? That is the best portfolio they have right now. They still have to do better, keep working on themselves and building the habit of improving. But yeah, so the projects are, before I get to the project, the first few weeks is just getting to play with the engine. So it's more like, okay, level design a small level, that's it. New project. Blueprint, okay, here's 4 meters by 4 meters, or I don't know how many feet, basically. And just like, here's some basic blueprint quick shots. So some basic scripts next to each other. Right. You're familiar with Blueprint. Now that we covered like the basic of how to like change properties in the engine, add stuff, okay, let's start with the project. The first one is a platformer. That's the easiest thing you can do. I think the Hour of Code project you have released is really amazing. It has a lot of beautiful content. So students, even with a simple game, they can end up with a very beautiful project that they're gonna see super satisfied with. P.S. The projects before, I was not using any asset at all. They were using whatever inside of the engine. So that meant I wanted to show students how simple it is to build almost anything without having anything. Even without an artist, you can pretend that cube is a door and you can add some materials on it to get basic things up and running. Anyway, back to the platformer. Platformer, you can just move, jump, collision, grab key, open door, that's it, done. Second one is more advanced, it's an FPS. So you have a health system, you have some inheritance with the guns because there's different type of guns. You can even add a basic AI that follows you and shoot at you. Great. And then the third project is Space Invaders. It's the most basic project you can think of. There's literally a main player and some enemies you want to shoot. However, we're gonna focus heavily on the best practices. You have to use a style guide, how to name your assets properly. You have to focus on inheritance. You have to focus on design patterns. You have to focus on interface, blueprint communication. All of the best way to actually code a very basic example in case you want to expand it for the future, like if it's going to become more complex. And yeah, those are basically the 3 projects. They used to be more, they used to be different. Each year I would change which one didn't work. I had a multiplayer example. I think that's too advanced for a beginner. Remove that one. So yeah, those are basically the 3 projects. And I don't have to finish them all. I just go with the flow. If my students are fast enough, they get more stuff. If not, I'll stop. The goal is like, I'm gonna go with as much as they have time to grasp. I don't have to like squeeze things. I did that, it works. But honestly, maybe they shouldn't also have to like squeeze 3 books into their head in like one session.
Well, because, like you said, it's not a game development program. You're really there.
Course.
It's one course.
You want them
hopefully
to love
2,
the course.
So that they go for the second. Well, and that's so, really your goal isn't to, have a bunch of game developers graduating, because trying to learn game development in 2 semesters would be, like you said, you just have to stuff your brain full and you'd still probably not do terribly well. But to introduce them, and this is, to me, it's very interesting. It's very much how we approach STEM and STEAM education in the States for secondary and primary education. And it's really, the concept is to get hands-on and just get the experience of doing it and get your feet wet so that you know some of those terms. And when an opportunity arises and someone says, boy, it'd be great if we had a game here, or you can capitalize on that, or when you see that job or that position or that meetup that's of Unreal developers, I'll feel comfortable going there. I've done a couple of things. So it's really very much this, like, we just want to get people comfortable and let them experience it for the first time, because I think so many people have just never experienced what game development is.
If you think about it, so many things we do creatively are actually based on very simple principles, and they are, but there's a lot of them that join up together. A lot of people have learned how to play a musical instrument of some sort, sometimes better, sometimes worse. But with 3 or 4 chords, you can actually start playing in a band. And that playing makes you better. It's the playing that makes you better. It's not that, it's not going back and learning. It's the playing that you actually learn so much when you're doing that. It's the same thing when you're doing art or when you're making games. It's making games that actually is the real learning process. What you do in a classroom is helping you to get there. But it's making more, the courses which are most successful that we've seen are the ones that make lots of games.
Absolutely. That's absolutely, what I've seen traveling is the most, or, if you take a look at the top 10 game programs, they all follow a very similar structure, which is you need to develop games as a team to graduate, because that's what industry is. And so it's a very different kind of, perspective of like a DigiPen or a Full Sail who's trying to produce for an existing industry. You're trying to produce people that will go out and create that industry, or that can grow that industry. And so it's interesting, like your focus is very much more on success. Like you said, if they can submit, if they can do the job, they get a good score. If they go above, then they get above. So you're not setting them up for failure. You're setting them up for success. It's a very interesting perspective on how to bring this concept to people and what to teach and when to teach it as well.
Oh, also another thing, I asked a student to do a homework once, and that student did half the homework. He didn't realize there were more questions. So I looked at it and was like, hey, you did half of it. I can not correct it, and you can just resubmit it if you want. And I'm like, yes, please. I'm like, okay. I mean, I don't have a deadline. It's like the deadline is more, I recommend you finish by this date, because if you don't, you're not going to have enough time to do the next one. That's about it. Also, another thing, because I'm not doing that much sessions, like I only have 1 session, I usually have 2. I actually still have two, but I'm only doing one. I told students, hey, if you have questions, just reach out to me directly. And I've actually done 101 with a couple of students. Like during the entire semester, I have 11 students. For the last months, I only had to do 2 calls, basically. 2 students got stuck, they had an issue. And for me, it took like 10 to 20 minutes to just see what the problem is. And good luck doing that with your university professor usually. So yeah, that's nice. I don't know if it scales well on a bigger class, but it's nicer when the class is in the 15 people kind of range. Above that, it's going to be harder.
Absolutely. Well, do you have any examples of some student work that you can show us? We'd love to see some.
Well, actually,
if we can.
Let's see. Yes, if you
we'll
give
see
me
if
1
technology will allow you to show some student work.
All right, 1 second. I'm gonna load the engine in the background, so you might see something.
All right.
I will show you projects, and just those are the ones that are not related to. Well, they're not like the platform. It's just the basic ones. So like the first one, when I asked a student to place an object and other things. Let me just share my screen. This should be fine. Okay. And now I feel like a lot of people on the stream were just gonna do the exact same thing. So, okay, this is an example of a student. I asked them to write your name here and just pick a color so you're familiar with the detail properties here. That was literally the first homework. That was very basic. Here's how to place objects, rotate them, add a light, change the color intensity, and then you end up with this. And then a student submitted this instead, which is like a full fortress. He actually properly named it, the example, what it's supposed to be. He had some lights just because, well, you asked for a light, it doesn't fit here, but I'm going to place one just for you here. And yeah, so that's a lot of details. And I didn't explain any modeling tools. That's purely made out of scaled cubes. So that student got an extra grade. And that was a very basic example. It's because you're just learning with the engine. I don't want to teach you literally everything from the first session. And then this is my blueprint example, which I tried to include literally everything because I know they're programmers. So I don't have to include what a variable or what a for loop is. And the example is very basic. I actually added the features and then later made the game. This UFO was purely made in engine by making 2 cones and a sphere and a material, and you got a UFO. And the material is called basic, which has only
Joseph, your audio cut out there as you were opening up the material editor. Could you show us that again real quick?
Sorry.
No worries.
You see it now?
Yeah.
So basically you have a color, metallic, roughness, and emissive. That's about it. And with this basic material, you can create as many child materials that you can color the whole scene with. So first, the concept of inheritance. You have 1 button and you have 4 buttons that does different things. So the parent simply does is change the color and activate an event. That's about it. And each button, one of them actually, let me play the level here. So the first button just shows you some UFOs hovering using a timeline. The second button, turn on the light because now it's red alert and they're attacking. The third button does what we do best, which is throw bombs at it. And technically the bombs eventually will hit UFOs and enable simulate physics on hit event. And the last one will just clean up the whole thing. So it will actually remove everything. Okay. And even this light example, it's literally a cone and a cylinder. So, and finally you have the pier,
starter
which is
content.
also, exactly. And this pier is using a cylinder and a cube. And that was an introduction to construction script. It has a parameter where you can literally just change the length of it by adding static mesh components with a for loop.
This is a great demo level. Trying to take someone who already knows programming concepts and introduce Blueprint can be a little challenging when there's a lot of extra stuff going on, and then blueprints get kind of messy, and so having something that's really straightforward where there's no like art considerations or everything else is really great. I think for programmers too, because Unreal's a little overwhelming. And so just taking it down into that one topic and getting rid of everything else is really instructive. I have a couple maps like this, but I think mine are even too fancy. I love this idea of the material and the basic material, and that there aren't even textures. It's all just
the size map. The whole thing is less than 23 megabytes.
It's programmer art.
And that's because of the sky. The sky is not part of the game, so technically it's actually below 10 megabytes, the whole thing.
Because the sky ships with the engine, correct?
Yeah. So if I go into Explorer, the content folder right now is just about 4 megabytes.
And that's,
one
like
more
we
thing
said,
I wanna
that's
show.
huge, because someone can download that instantly, even on a slow connection, or even download it somewhere, put it on a flash drive, move it around much more easily.
So this homework was a bit too long than usual. So instead of telling students figure it out, I actually did it in front of them as a video. And I told them, hey, replicate, but instead I want you to comment the code. And the only way to know they actually understood the code is by them adding comments.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
That reminds me of English or language arts teacher having you read a passage and then paraphrase it in your own words. But for programmers, so read this code and paraphrase what it does in your own words.
It actually works. I had students who did proper comments. I had students who literally just rewrote the name of the function. And I had students who had no idea, so they put a giant comment and said, this does stuff, kind of thing. Like, I assume one of them does it. I don't know which one, so I'm just going to group the whole thing. So,
well, and that's very instructive to you as their educator to know who's grasping or even if you are teaching the concepts, if it all comes back and no one knows, you got an idea.
And because I was correcting it live, I managed to tell the student, well, I was correcting the comments at the same time. And the next homework is going to be on GitHub with branches and all. So I can actually send their comments and notes as a push to their repository.
That's really cool. That's really cool. I've seen more educators using GitHub for kind of interesting ways of distributing stuff. Even if you look at Mark Alano's guide, he includes some GitHub and Python scripts for collecting and grading students' work on GitHub, which is that's developer humor right there, I believe, and it's. I think it's just so cool seeing how people use these tools like that to teach, because grading 30 projects can be difficult, and then in that guide he's actually teaching advanced programming with the entire engine, and so Mark had the problem of students submitting the entire engine, which he's not going to build the whole engine for everyone to make sure. Who's got time for that? So he figured out he can use GitHub, and they each get a branch. And so Mark only has to download the diffs for each one, and can just check the diffs. But the students have to follow the branching and have to submit correctly. And if they don't, then they're not following the assignment correctly.
That's the plan for the platformer, where not only that, each week I will add more assets, and they have to sync from the main branch to get those assets as well.
You're like sneaking in all these kinds of game skills and development skills.
Trying, because I think GitHub is really essential, and it should be taught in source control is definitely I still struggle with source control because it wasn't covered in anywhere. They always focus on the technology and not source control itself. So
absolutely, that's that's a problem throughout the industry. And there's very few schools that are teaching the entire production pipeline. Very much they are teaching individual skills, and it's that glue that sticks them together, that when they go get a job at Epic and they're suddenly they need to like work with Jira and Unreal Games Sync and Perforce and all this stuff, and they're like, I've never seen anything like this before. And that's a really steep learning curve. And
it is.
And being able to use those systems in a company like Epic or a big game company is truly as essential as knowing how to do your work. Because if you can't submit it and can't work on a team, then your work can't be included. So that's really cool. I think it's really cool how many kind of lessons of game development you're building into these courses. I want to ask you, so your students, you've taught this for a couple of semesters now. What's your students' reactions? Where do you feel like they're going to move towards this, and that this is kind of a growth thing at the university?
Right. So, okay, I got really different reactions because the course did change and the student changed. Like when I first started, it wasn't a full course. It was more like, we're gonna give you this optional course that student can pick. And slowly I built my way until becoming its own dedicated course. So there's a lot of practice that changes. At some point, I tried to bring my friend in who's a game designer, and hey, maybe you should focus, the first half should be game design, and then the other half should be gameplay programming. That kind of worked and didn't work. I wanted to focus more on creativity because students will do exactly what you tell them to. When the course review came up, they gave my friend lower reviews because they're like, we're programmers, we want to program. And mine were like, I got good reviews, but I learned I didn't want that. I think just giving more grades for creativity works better than teaching them how to be creative. It's weird, but that's how student works. Give them grades, they'll do it. Don't give them grades, they won't.
So much psychology in teaching. Who would have ever guessed? Well, this is fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us. We're almost at our time here. I want to see, Mark, are there any other great questions from the chat that you'd like to bring up?
Here, there's quite a few questions. So there's, as you said, they understand, have to comment blueprint. So how would you evaluate different levels? Is it all or none? Wondering how you scale such an attribute of an assignment. 10 proper spelling, understandable, 8 minor defects, 7 made an effort, etc. So the way the sort of marking rubric which you put to this kind of thing, do you focus entirely on just something that works? How do you approach marking when you actually get to a game?
Yeah, if like for example, I tell the student the first assignment was, hey, place objects, do this, have a light. Like this is the checklist of stuff you need to do. You have them, great. The second one was use the modeling tool to create that object. It needs to have a minimum of that. So if for some reason my description was wrong, that's on me. But I'm working more like, yeah, you have those criteria that you have to meet. As long as you meet them, it's fine. Like if I tell you, for example, you need to have a moving platform and you write a different type of code than the one I told you, it's fine, as long as it's a moving platform. If I say you need to use a timeline and you don't use a timeline, then you lose a point. That's about it.
And sort of the rubric for comments, when you're commenting the blueprints?
Right. If you have comments that are accurate, like that, if I read the comments and it shows that you actually understand, then it's commented.
Yep, that's what I'd go for.
Yeah, and it's it's really key, I think, when teaching these sorts of things to really focus on scoring what's important. Is it important that they use proper grammar and full sentences in their comments? Probably not. It's really important that they find the right nodes and put a comment that says what it does. Right. But there's maybe some room for improvement on, describing it or, whatever, or scaling it to fit the things. There's there's all of those, but I think and taking a I've found and learned that taking away a lot of those extra rubrics helps students often feel more comfortable and be more creative, and feel more comfortable putting themselves out there if they're not super concerned about hitting 1,000 little check marks, or even having to do something that they're not super comfortable with. You have programmers, like you said, when they were forced to do art stuff, they didn't like it, and it wasn't what they wanted or needed to do.
So it was more game design with pen and paper. You're not allowed to use any coding language.
Oh, how dare you!
Yeah.
You're bringing them all the way back to.
Hey, back in
the
my
early
day,
days.
my professor let us actually program on a pen and paper, and be like, "You're not allowed to use that syntax correcting thing. You have to use."
You have to turn off in the little squigglies and everything, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's I think when my experience is that when I'm teaching fundamentals or teaching people who don't have experience in the topic, I'm extremely forgiving, and I'm trying to just get them to succeed in any way that they can. I really don't want them to feel that they can't get through the course or through the content, and that's a really hard line to have something that's educational, but also is forgiving enough. Like you said, it's constantly evolving, even from semester to semester, to know what works. Well, awesome. I want to ask you, we've talked about some resources and some stuff. Do you have any top sites to go to, resources for people who are in the Middle East, North Africa, who want to start learning game development? They want to build up a community in their area. Where can they go? I
Right.
think our typical resources probably fall a little short in this area here. So I'd love to hear your insight.
So I think our tutorials are great, especially on the YouTube channel. You're going to find a lot of tutorials, but for starting out, and especially if you want something localized, the first and most important advice, always try to connect with your local community. So make sure that your community, you're in touch with them. If you don't know where your community is, you can go to the website Arabic.games, which is the conference that I mentioned in the beginning. And we had a lot of communities involved. We listed all of them on the website. So if you go to Arabic.games, you'll find a logo for each community. By clicking on it, it will take you to their social media or their website or whatever contact you can, and try to reach out to them, see if there's anyone that can help you with that. Now, if some resources that are not known, there's a game design course for free in Arabic made by Fawzi Masmar. You can find it on a website called Idrak, which is EEDRAK. So that is one of the courses they did. It's purely in Arabic. Also, Arabic Games has some, the talks are being uploaded each week on our YouTube channel, so you can find them there. And yeah, I guess that's it. So we're working on having more centralized resources in the region. And I'm also looking into making my own content as well, either via Epic. If not possible, then I will also release every once in a while maybe content in Arabic as well. And yeah, hopefully soon they will get more information, more tutorials. So keep an eye and make sure to always, again, connect with your local community.
Absolutely. It really is. It is all about that. It's just, you can't have development without the community. And when that community is there, development will just be born from that. People will meet and will have creative ideas, and hopefully they will build something with it. But it won't start with that community. So this was a really wonderful insight into your work in the region, and into, I think, for all of us who are educators And I think a lot of us on the stream are people who try to promote Unreal Engine and game development. I've had a wonderful career with it, and I think a lot of other people can have really awesome careers in this industry. And I want everyone around the world to have that opportunity, because the games industry is phenomenal. And I think, everyone in the games industry wants everyone else in the games industry to succeed. It's the only place I've ever worked where all my competition is also all my best friends. For developing countries and regions, it's opportunity. Just like it is for everyone right now. The barrier to entry is very low. And if you have the skills and the connections, even someone in their bedroom can do some really amazing stuff right now using this technology. So the opportunity is there. The world, I think, has opened up in the last year. And virtual working, virtual learning, I think all of this is really key to helping people outside of our normal stomping grounds really join us in what we're doing, because it's great. Come on over, make some games.
Yeah, and if you try to apply things and get rejected, just keep working on yourself. It took me 6 years to be satisfied with my 3D modeling skills. It takes a lot of time. Just keep working and keep trying.
Absolutely. Mark, do you have any closing comments?
No, it's been a great stream. I think an awful lot of topics which somehow or other we haven't covered before just got covered. It's really good.
Love it. Well, thank you, Joseph, for joining us. I have a couple housekeeping things to go over. So welcome to 2021, everyone. 2020, bye-bye. So 2021 has some pretty big stuff going on at Epic. We may have some large releases, and we're growing and doing crazy stuff all over. And so there's a lot of opportunities for us in education this year to do some really cool stuff. We've got some really awesome events and some other programs going on. But to do that, we're going to have to dial back the live stream a notch. So starting this live stream, the education live stream will be once a month on the first Tuesday of every month, at least through the summer, so that we can do all the things that we want to do. We have a fairly small team in education, so we have to use our resources wisely. So I love doing this stream every week, and I will miss you all dearly weekly. But we will be back next month with a really great stream. So look for all of the information about that. And it should be a bigger, better stream with more
Dancing
llamas, maybe?
Unicorns. Yes, llamacorns.
There's only one this whole stream. There's only been the one the entire time. So we're going to try and get that to 2. So thank you for joining us. I think we've done about 40 of these streams over the last year. And we look forward to doing more and bringing on more amazing people. So thank you all for joining us. And we will see you on April 6th for the next Educator stream.
Not
Goodbye.
April 1st. No.
No.
April 6th.
No. Wait.
April 6th. No.
No pranks either. All right.
No pranking. Okay.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a great day.